Alright, so I got the engine stand. I got the aluminum 5.3 off the stand from back there. I changed the little stuff, shuffled it around under the shelf back there. Trying to clean up a little bit around here. I got the pistons here. I got the rods there. And I was going through stuff. I got the total seal rings. I don't have my bearings, which I'm wondering if you forgot about the bearings. But then I was like, okay, well, I'll start putting, rods on pistons and all that stuff. And supposedly this is a balanced motor. Well, I started looking at the rods here, and on here I've got I don't know if you can see it. There's a number on there, 2343. So I know the cap matches, right? But there's nothing on this side. There's no stamping as to which number rod it is. It does have a chamfer on one side for the radius on the crank, and then flat on the other side. So I know I have to put them with the radius to the radius on the crankshaft. But there's no identifying mark as to which piston and rod go to which piston and rod. He obviously the pin is fit to the bushing in the rod, but all I have in here is this little sheet, which is sealed in the package still from Molnar. So that's not gonna have any kind of, there's no balancing. I mean, even when you look at, there's no grind marks anywhere on these rods from balancing. None. No marks whatsoever as far as grinding for balance or anything, right? Because normally they'll take and they'll grind a little bit, because they weigh big end to little end, they weigh them with the piston, they take that weight into account for each of your bob weights on your crankshaft to balance the crankshaft and the rods and the pistons. And then so I'm like, well, what the heck, how do I know which piston goes to which rod? Maybe he made a mark on the pistons. Well, my pistons only have the numbers for JE on them. Nowhere are they marked at all. So I don't believe this engine is balanced. I don't believe my rotating assembly is balanced. I'm gonna have to ask him about that, because maybe he wants the flywheel and the balancer in order to do the balance. But I can't put this motor together without having it balanced. That's a big fat no-go. So yeah, I'm gonna end up having to get a hold of him tomorrow, I think, and ask him about bearings, ask him about the balance on the motor. So I don't know where I'm at. I don't know what's going on. I'm really kind of miffed right now because my engine obviously is not balanced. Mad. Anyways, I'm so mad. I gotta run. I gotta go do a couple of errands, so I'm just gonna call it today, I guess. Go to work tomorrow. Anyways, see you later. Well, there are some days where I just lose all hope in humanity. Today is one of those days. I don't know. I had to just come down here, do something, because it's nighttime. I should be getting ready to go to bed. so I can get up early and go to work tomorrow. But I don't know, I gotta get something done today. So the plan is to get this bugger on the engine stand so that I can start putting it together. So it turns out that there's a handwritten painted mark on the front of the crankshaft of what bob weight they used. So the machine shop must have weighed a piston and pin, whatever, guessed on a set of rings and bearing, whatever. And so they have a bob weight that they balance that crank to. So I went through all of the rods and pistons that I have, and I balanced them on a triple beam scale on the dining room table at home. And I set them together so I wouldn't mess it all up. And I kind of assigned them all a number so that I can have an idea of where they go. That one being 8, that one 7, so on and so forth. So basically, I need to get the engine block up on the stand so that I can gap the rings. So I'll probably take the bearings and set them in so I can set the crank in. Nah, scratch that. I think what I'll do is I'll just one by one gap the rings for the pistons in the block, and then I'll put the rings back on the pistons, because I think I need to get some plastic gauge so that I can at least plastic gauge the bearings to make sure that I have proper oil clearances. So then I can install the ARP main studs in the block, I guess. You know, I can do some things like that, make sure all the bolt holes and everything are all cleaned out and whatnot. And I don't know, I just got to get something done today. So anyways, here we go. So I realized that even though it was dark out, it was still early enough. Parts store was open, so I went and I picked up some plastic gauge so I can clearance these bearings and make sure that they're actually where they're supposed to be. I did put in the ARP studs. I put them in with the Allen wrench. I snugged them up probably to about 6 foot-pounds-ish, just snug. Then I backed them all off, and then I brought them in with just the small end of the Allen. So they are just slightly tighter than hand tight, but not anything, probably an inch-pounds tight. So I think those are good. So then the next thing to put in is the king bearings, because we have the main bearings. So this should work. Those are some nice bearings. And those must be the other side. Okay. Didn't realize that the two different packages were two different sides. But I guess they are. Interesting. Yep. I've always wondered what quality king bearings were. And now that I have some, they actually seem like extremely nice bearings. I used Cleveite 77 bearings previously. You know, they were, you know, what I consider nice bearings, but man, these king bearings look nicer than the Cleveite 77s. They feel nicer than the Cleveite 77s. This, I need to set these caps. Exciting part right here. Yeah. Man. I really hope I don't have to clearance the block in for this. That'll be super fun if I do have to. But I'm hoping that I don't have to clearance the block. The fork stroke crank. Oh man. There's no lube, so I do not want to rotate the crankshaft because I don't want to score the bearings up. The whole purpose of this is to measure the bearing clearances. So, crap. I already see an issue. Okay. I should show you guys this. The reason why I picked it up and moved it again. So I've got the oil holes in the crankshaft journals, and I don't want the oil holes in the crankshaft journals up at the top where I need to put in my plastic gauge to measure the bearing clearance. So I'm just trying to basically make sure that I've got a nice surface on each one of the journals. It doesn't have a big oil hole in it and everything to mess up my measurements. So that was kind of the exercise of the reason why I picked the crankshaft up and put it back down in there, just to make sure that I've got a place to put the plastic gauge. This would be number 1. I don't know. I think if I can get these bearings plastic gauged on the crankshaft, measure these oil clearances, and then get the assembly lube in on the bearings, get the crankshaft in, get it torqued in tonight, I think I'll go home and sleep happily tonight. So that is kind of what I would like to try and do, I guess, tonight, is just get these clearances checked on the main bearings and get the crankshaft set in, I guess. The thing is that plastic gauge has a very specific diameter on the actual plastic gauge string. It's a very specific diameter, and so with when you squeeze the bearing down on it, the amount that diameter squishes out in a widthwise pattern tells you how many thousandths of an inch. You can get it in different sizes, like, so this is 0.001 thousandth to 0.003. So 1 thousandth to 3 thousandths of an inch. And then I got this other one just in case, just to have it around, and it's 2 thousandths to 6 thousandths of an inch. So when you squeeze the bearing down on the plastic gauge, that diameter will squeeze out to one of these widths. So if it's really wide like this, that's 1 thousandth, and then 1.5 thousandths, 2 thousandths, 3 thousandths. Whereas this one is 6 thousandths, 5 thousandths, 4, 3, 2. So that's like almost like a micrometer reading, like widthwise, to tell you how much clearance that is when that little wire squeezes out, you know. So it's a very specific diameter, which is why I don't like to pull on it or try and use a fingernail or something, because I don't want to mess up that diameter of the original plastic gauge. I try to handle it fairly gently, I guess I would say. I just had a razor blade. What did I do with it? What a putz. I just had the razor blade. Well, if I put it in my pocket, I won't like that very much, will I? What did I do with my razor blade? Psh. I thought I'd set it down somewhere on the edge of the block. But then I had to cut that. I cut it in my finger. And then, oh, there it is. Found it. So just have to backtrack a little. Oh, I see what it is. There's a difference in length of threads. So there's a difference in thread length. The taller ones have more thread, the shorter ones have less thread on the fine. They all have the same coarse thread on them, but the fine thread side is for the taller side because it's going to have to hold the windage tray, and less thread on the short side that's not going to have the windage tray. I get it now. It kind of makes sense.